Yeah, my name's Bill Evans. I'm a captain on the Airbus for the legacy carrier. I was hired back in '98. Before that, I flew for a regional. It was a small place. It was paying your dues. Definitely, we looked up to companies like Sandpiper Air, where I came from. So just to get going here, I've been 23 years with a legacy carrier and started about 3 years before 9/11.
Excellent. Now, what do you recall, Bill, from those first moments when you heard about the attack?
Yeah, I was off that day, living in base, middle of the country, and my house phone rang. We didn't really have cell phones back then, so the house phone rang. I got out of bed early morning for Central Time Zone, and it was my mother on the phone. It's kind of weird. She didn't normally call me. And she goes, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Just got out of bed." "So you're home?" "Yeah, I'm home." She goes, "Okay." I go, "What's going on? You need something?" "What?" No idea what's going on. She says, "You need to just turn on the TV." And of course, that started it right there. Just turning on the TV, seeing the sky, seeing the building. Only one plane had hit then, and immediately, I knew it wasn't an accident. I'd flown there every week for a year, back and forth, Midway, LaGuardia, long layovers in each town, and it was obvious. There was no way that was an accident. So that was kind of how it wasn't kind of that is how I found out about it. Was just a call from a relative seeing if I was home, knowing that I travel to New York every week, multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you recall of that day?
Just how pretty, what a pretty day, back home where I was, it was a pretty day. Looking at the TV, you couldn't have a better fall day in New York. It was just a beautiful day, and knowing, just thinking about my trips and where I would normally be on a day like that, down in Manhattan, maybe the Brooklyn Bridge, just hang out, whatever you feel like doing. It just looked like a perfect day to go enjoy New York City. And anyway, we know how it ended up.
Yeah. And so how long did these, events of that day affect you and your family?
It affects us to this day. Well, I can think several times over the years where I've broken down. You think you're way past it, and you're not. It's always there. It's always in the back of your head. You think back to what it was like beforehand. You used to, technology was limited, but we started carrying pagers. So if you're on reserve, your pager would go off and you pull it out, and then you felt pretty cool out of it because you got a pager. You run to the payphone and call and see where you're going, that type of thing. The trips. I was flying the Fokker jet, a little less than 100 passengers. So we had two pilots, two flight attendants. We were paired together the whole sequences back then. It's hard to break a crew up. So you're real tight with your crews. You really got to know each other. The typical names for the Fokker, it's called the 4-day double date, or the Ken and Barbie jet. Just good times back then. Just you get that call on your pager. You show up at the airport, hop the employee bus, and it drops you off at a side door. You just go through the side door and you're in the terminal. No TSA. TSA didn't exist. It was local security firms that handled the security at the airports.
Yeah.
The TSA is all born from 9/11. So, looking back at that, and how does it affect you to this day? It affects all of us, whether we know it or not. It's there. you're familiar with just showing up for work now, what it's like. Nothing like it used to be. On the flights, the flight attendants would get done in the back, and they wouldn't have to call or anything. They just unlock the door and walk up with a extra plate full of shrimp cocktail and sit down and hang out for 10 or 20 minutes, talk and relax for a little bit, and then they go about what they're doing. The whole ship and everything having to do with our job and security, born from 9/11 is just immense when you really sit back and think about everything that you used to be able to do back then that you cannot do now.
Yeah.
The reading the names, you mentioned that earlier. That's a lot of names there. So we do have a fellow pilot that his father was on one of the jets as a pilot. I had the honor of bumping into him about a month ago and talking with him a little bit. I can only imagine what he's going through. I wasn't flying that day. I did not have a relative involved, but going back to how does it affect you to this day? I could sit here if I dwelled on it long enough, I'd probably be in tears again.
Yeah. Now it really truly was a pinprick to the heart of this industry. To see this happen, to have everything that has changed over the years come to fruition. We were talking with some fellow pilots recently, and they were mentioning, yeah, you remember when we would have children and people come up to the flight deck mid-flight at cruise when we're not busy, and they'd come up and they took take a look at the cockpit in awe and wonder, and we'd take a photo with them with their little point and shoot cameras, and it was just a different time. And like you mentioned, they'd just come in the door and bring coffee and treats. And after 9/11, things changed, I think, for the better in terms of security. We now have a bulletproof door that separates us from, the back of the firewall there. And things are so procedured out. We have procedures for everything. How we open the door, how we even use the restroom. We have procedures for that. And what other changes did you see that happened after the events of 9/11 that were not there before?
One thing that I was reflecting on right after 9/11 was, I guess, the next week, I'm flying my trips again up to the Northeast. And one thing I just got to throw this out there because it makes me think about our country is I had a DC layover, and we were going Chicago to DC, coming down the Potomac River, and you're descending and following the river, and on the left you got the Capitol building and the White House and all the monuments, and on the right you have Arlington National Cemetery and the Pentagon. And again, this was before cell phones, with cameras and everything else. So I had my own little camera sitting there. I had it turned on. It had the little SD card, and I had it ready to go. So we're coming down the Potomac, and here comes the Pentagon. And it had the hole and it had the flag over the side. I grabbed my camera and I went to take a quick shot, and it said my SD card was full. And I thought back to the last picture I took was the flight attendants in the back before we left Chicago. Just, hey, here's our crew. That should have been the picture that I had for my keepsake. So anyway, we land and enjoy a layover, and we come back to the airport the next day. And again, it's not TSA yet. It's private security, and now we have a bunch of National Guardsmen running around the airport. They're all standing there at the security checkpoints with their rifles. And I get through security and grab my bag and go stand over with a National Guardsman. And the captain, he gets pulled aside for additional screening. And they grab his bag, throw it up on a little fold-out table there. And I just start smiling. The more I watched it, the more I started smiling at this. And some of the National Guard guys, they started smiling too. But they took the captain's bag, put it up on the table. And a Muslim man with a turban that works in security, unzips his bag, and it's going through his bag in Washington, D.C., right after 9/11, going through the bag of an airline captain. And it just made me think about the diversity of this country and our ability as a society to accept, after what just happened, to accept people for really who they are and to be able to go through, come through stuff like that. So that doesn't really answer your question about procedural changes, but that's something that I've thought about off and on to this day is what a good country this is to be able to take all the different diversities and put it together and make this place what it is. And to be able to rely on each other.
Well, that definitely has gotten better over the years, and that is a testament of what we represent as Americans.
It is, and it's prevalent through our industry, and through the airline we work for. So, as far as security procedures, I think that's what you're asking me about. Halftime, by the time we show up to work now, we're worn out. Everything that we've gone through to get there.
True.
I quite often say my favorite part of the airplane is the cockpit door. So once it's closed, we're there to do what we do good, what we do well. And we know how to do that. All the other stuff, all the passenger screening, all the screening we go through, all the fingerprinting we do, all the badging we do, everything we have to do just to show up and fly an airplane from point A to point B and do it well really does take a toll on the crews. And it's now, you can see, especially you throw COVID in there now with all the mask requirements and everything else. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that that's just one more layer that's making people snap back there and act in ways that they shouldn't be. So the security, it'd be nice if we could back it off a little, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen. How do you get it more in the background? I don't know, but I'm still not sure I'm answering your question the way you want. But
no, that's fine. How would you express the significance of 9/11 to a young aviator that was not old enough to really have experienced it firsthand 20 years ago?
I think it's ingrained in anybody coming up at that age now. There wasn't the day of hijackings where some guy says, well, I want to go to Cuba and get some money and try to run off, and live the rest of my life. That used to be what hijacking was. Now, that's not what it is. That's and I don't think. I think in order to talk to somebody young like my son about that, who's in his early 20s, he would first have to know what hijacking was before, what the procedures were, what the history was on all these security situations, what it was like before, because they've never lived that. So I'm not so sure that there's something that I could tell somebody now that they haven't grown up living. If you never experienced anything different than you first have to introduce them to that in order to show them how it changed. I had a challenge coin that our union made up for, I think you have.
Yeah, thank you.
For 9/11, and it has the 4 flights, United's flights and American's flights on the back. It has the memorial in Grapevine, Texas on there. And the other side has the Twin Towers and a flag. I came through TSA going to work. And after I got through and I was not what we call random for extra screening, I pulled out one of these challenge coins and gave it to the young lady working the TSA security checkpoint for us. And I said, here, I want you to have this. And I went over it with her. And she looked at it, she goes, wow, this is really neat. I've never received anything like this before. And I said, well, I just want you to know how important your job is to the security of our industry. And I want you to have this and keep it. And remember. And she said, wow, thanks, and as I'm getting ready to walk away, she goes, I was alive back then, but I don't remember 9/11. I was too young. So that's kind of where I was going with, hey, what do you tell young people? This is all they've lived. If you're 20, we're at 20 years now,
Yeah.
Even if you were 2, 3, 4 years old, you don't remember it. This is all you know.
Yeah. So it's up for us that were old enough back then, and those of us that were actually in the industry, in the airline industry at the time, that were directly affected in one way or another, to share that moment, that change. I mean, we all remember hearing stories from our parents where they were during the Kennedy assassination, from our parents where they were when we pulled out of Vietnam, where they were during the Martin Luther King assassination, where they were when the first man landed on the moon and walked on the moon. These are pivotal moments in our history, and 9/11 is no different. It's not just another day. It's not just another tick mark on the calendar. It's a day of remembrance for how on our soil the acts of a few led to the change to all. And it's important to remember that. And thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. There it is.
There it is. This is a beautiful thing. I appreciate you handing me one of these. This is very important to me. It stays in my kit bag, and it will not leave my kit bag.
I carry one in my pocket every trip.
Yeah, for sure.
No, the only other thing I reflected on the last couple of days is having a layover in New York City. It was probably close to a year after 9/11, and it was a long layover. I brought my wife with me. Captain brought his wife with him, and we rode down to Ground Zero, which was still being dug out and cleaned up, debris removed. It was an incredible hole. It was, and this is from looking at platforms up, from buildings on the side. And I thought, you know what, let's walk down to the gate. So we walked down there, and they had a couple people there just guarding them. It's just a little barrier that they could move and get trucks in and out. And I said, hey, here's who we are, and just curious if somebody could take us in. No, you can't do that. All right. So we stood around a little bit, just looking from that vantage point, and a policeman walked up from inside. And he said, hey, I hear you're an airline crew. I said, yeah, we are. He took our IDs. He moved the barricade and took us in and walked us all the way down to the middle of it. And it looked even bigger from down there. It was overwhelming. And he said, right here, this marker, We found a bone fragment yesterday right here. It's been bagged, it's been tagged, we've got a marker, and one day DNA technology is going to be good enough to where we can identify who this is and let their next of kin know. And all four of us just broke down. It was just incredible thinking who that might have been, where, what they were doing that day, where they came from. Just, and I don't know how the technology's come along, but I assume it's gotten better, and they're able to take these. He said there's just thousands of them. And
oh my God.
And yeah, it was.
Thank you for sharing that. That could only have been experienced.
You didn't expect it to hit you like that,
Yeah, right there at the moment. I mean,
yeah. Anyway.
I don't think there are many people in this world that have had that opportunity to be there during the cleanup, during the initial few months and even years leading up to the restoration and rebuilding of that memorial of Freedom Tower and the adjacent buildings. So the fact that you just by chance were there that day,
just by chance,
and that officer by chance overheard you and overrode that guard's duty and allowed you and your crew and your family, your wife to go down there, that is something that is just an awesome experience. And I am very grateful that you shared that with us. Thank you so much.
We have a great career, great job, a great industry. We have fun doing it. Everybody does this because they love it. I can't think the last person I met that just does it. They don't like it, but they just do it for the money. But we're very lucky. And along with that comes a tremendous responsibility. When you go through your training from private pilot on up, however you get here, whether it's through the military or civilian route, but you go through that training. And I remember going from a little airplane, the first time I got to fly a twin, that was something, and then the next goal was to get in an airplane where I didn't crawl in the cockpit. I actually had to walk up an aisle to sit in the cockpit, But you go through this whole progression through your career. And then I went on to a regional and then on to a legacy. And along the way, you don't realize how exponentially your responsibility has grown. What you're responsible for. Every time we sit down in an airplane, we've got a couple $2 billion worth of liability on that airplane. And we're told every flight, you have 200 souls on board. It's not credit card applicants. It's not passengers. It's not this. It's not that. It's souls on board. And it's something, anybody that's young, one day I'm sitting there thinking about, how did I get from there to here? And that, you don't think about that responsibility in the sense that, it's going to make you nervous and so on, but you accept it and you do it. And I don't want to say I take it for granted, but it's something that we ought to reflect on as crew members a lot more than I think we do consciously. I'll leave it there and let you edit it out because I don't know where I started with that. But we can't forget the responsibility that we have, and that goes back to security as well. That is a big part of it. But we are responsible for the payload that we take with us every trip.
Yeah. I often say and have said over the years that the gravity of our responsibilities starts when we don that uniform in the morning and those wings are pinned to our chest. that's when our responsibility begins, not when they close the cockpit door, not when the parking brake is released, but the moment we put those wings on our chest, whether that's at home or in a hotel room, wherever, that's where it begins, and it doesn't end until we take them off.
Yep.
And we should be acting accordingly.
We ought to be.
Yeah. Well, Bill, thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with us.
Thank you, Tony.
I do appreciate all your recollections and the memories that you've shared with us very deeply. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.